Junichi Takabana is a loser who is dumped by her date on a Christmas night, which marks a special occasion for him every year to lose confidence and a will to lie. Although he has a traumatic history with Christmas night, he gathers his baby's confidence to make it memorable with the help of the girls he always liked, including his childhood friends. Fast forward to 2 years later, Junichi is still in shambles because of her and stays in the closet as his sister, Mia, tries to wake him up for school. After the mid-personality man gets out of the closet, he gets ready and walks to school with his sister, telling her not to call him Nai outside. Mia walks with her friend, and Junichi's friend, Yumehara Mayoshi, teases him for having a sexy sister. Junichi ignores her until he brings out the Goody Good magazine. They walk together and talk about the magazine's assets as they land their eyes on the school's queen, Haruka Morishima. Junichi admires her beauty and runs to the school as he's getting late. The Class 2A's representative, Tsukasa Ayatsuji, takes responsibility for the upcoming festival, and Junichi is shocked by her hard work and stares at her until she notices him and smirks. The bell rings for lunchtime, and Yumehara asks Junichi to go for lunch with him until their friend, Kaoru Tanamachi, wants to make things fun by playing rock, paper, scissors, and whoever loses brings the food for the rest. Junichi loses, sees a freshman struggling with the cafeteria's line, and helps her get what she wants. The girl shows her gratitude and goes away while Junichi is on his way to the class until he slips and has a fateful encounter with the queen, Haruka. They engage in a small conversation, and Junichi cannot believe he is talking with the queen. As the friends eat, Tsukasa asks Junichi to give him guidance papers. He fails to tell his friends about the encounter with Haruka, gives his papers to Tsukasa, and asks about Yumehara. She guides him to the library, and as he finds Yumehara, he bumps into Haruka. Surprisingly, she is looking for someone to hand over the books. They walk down the corridor until they meet Hibiki, who thanks Junichi for carrying the books and asks Haruka to thank him too, which leads them to introduce themselves. Yumehara arrives from behind and sees Junichi in shock, where he thinks to give his failed love life another shot. On the school grounds, he reminisces, and suddenly, Haruka jumps on his back and he collapses. Haruka explains how she used to play with boys in elementary school. As they walk, Mia arrives, and Junichi introduces her to Haruka, but she acts cold toward them and leaves. Haruka tells him she wants to get close to her so they can bathe together, filling the cherry boy's mind with mischievous things. Junichi sees Haruka at a waterfall in the school and decides to give his all to confess, just to get shot down. All heartbroken, Junichi returns home, and for solace, he enters his closet for the rest of the night. The morning breaks as Mia wakes Junichi up for school. However, he couldn't sleep because of the rejection and looked horrible. He goes to school either way, and his friends, including Tsukasa, suggest sleeping in the nurse's office. He goes to the office and sees Haruka lying in it. He tries to borrow a bed and wonders what made her rest there. She wakes up and tells him she could not sleep as well due to her favorite show, but this makes Junichi wonder why she's acting normally as she rejected him yesterday. Still, she suddenly reveals that she's interested in him, which confuses Junichi. They make up, and she tells the rejected noob about her ideal person. Haruka leaves the office and tells him to sleep well. When he returns to the class, he continuously grins, which makes Yumehara and Kaoru worry. Junichi is happy to finally have a chance again, which might make him and Haruka closer. In her home, Haruka thinks Junichi's eyes look like a puppy's, and he blushed crazily, and she fell asleep. In the school, Junichi practices wrestling with Yumehara as his sister and the girl he helped at the cafeteria walk by. Suddenly, Haruka enters and asks to wrestle against them, until Hibiki stops her and the four walk home together. They converse about confessing to people until it gets too relatable for Mr. Heartbreak, and he stops. He becomes the same eye-leeching creep in the morning. And as Haruka sees him, he becomes all fresh, and his sister becomes jealous of her and runs away. Junichi follows her, and she splashes water on him when he confronts her for her rudeness. He returns to the class all wet, and his friends ask about the incident. The class continues until a paper throw fight begins between Junichi and Kaoru, which angers the teacher. Junichi walks after the class and meets Haruka, who asks to borrow Mia's swimsuit, but as her assets are prominent, he denies it and tells her to borrow some club member's suit. They go to the pool, and Hibiki kicks them out after she wears the suit as they're strangers to the swim club. They go to the library, and Haruka falls asleep before Junichi can bring a book. As the night falls, she wakes up, and he's still there, and finally reads the books. He suddenly confesses for the second time, but this makes Haruka confused. And after he explains how he will never give up on her, she kisses him on his eyebrow and leaves, which makes Junichi ponder on himself. After Junichi feels love for the first time, he dominates every school field. In recess, Junichi meets with his teacher, Takahashi, and she asks if something happened to him since he was highly enthusiastic. She guesses it is something about love as Kaoru and her friend arrive, and she explains to them about his early spring. He starts to brag about his love for Kaoru until Haruka arrives and takes him away as she feels jealous since he is talking to other girls. She listens to the misunderstanding, and the goofy Junichi asks her to kiss him again, but she refuses as his eyebrows aren't looking kissable, and instead asks him to kiss her, but not in school. She says if somebody sees them, she will not let him kiss, and they begin their James Bond wannabe act until they reach the water pump shed behind the school. They get inside and begin their deed, but her lips are off limits, and he kisses her behind the knees, just like a dog he saw in the library, and she becomes red like an apple. The lunch recess is about to end, and Hibiki wonders about Haruka, whom Junichi is still kissing. He silently tries to ascend from the knee, but Haruka stops him, and he whines like a dog. He returns home and dreams of nothing but to kiss her knee again. He keeps asking her the next day, but she becomes annoyed, and in the night, Haruka tells Hibiki about her situation, but she tells her to allow him to spoil her next time. The morning breaks and Haruka surprises Junichi by meowing continuously, which makes him confused. She wonders if he likes it, but he reveals he loves it, and then they move toward the cafeteria, but she hates the menu. So, our cherry boy says he will present her with something unique. To her surprise, the fella brings a simple salted ramen and tells her to imagine if she's kidnapped, and that's her only food, and they roleplay as a kidnapper and a hostage while everyone looks at them. After Haruka returns home, she blushes and buries her face inside the sofa as Hibiki's advice comes handy. Back at the school, Mia and Rihoko ask Junichi to go shopping with them, and he gives up a walk with Haruka for the day. They go to the market to buy Christmas goods and visit enough shops to make Junichi's handful of bags as he plans to spend the whole Christmas night with her beloved Haruka. Suddenly, he sees and stares at Haruka in an alley while Mia and Rihoko think he needs to pee, and he runs toward Haruka as she uses the toy catcher. He surprises her and helps her with the toy, and she thanks him, which makes Junichi blush. They go to an arcade to test their love output, and while they're at it, she reveals that her middle name is Lovely, which comes from her mother's side. Later, Junichi takes her to a park to watch the sunset, reminding him of first meeting Haruka after his plane got shot down. He tells her about the incident and asks for a date, but she refuses. Instead, she invites him to his house on Christmas Eve since her grandparents are coming. Christmas Eve arrives, and Junichi rushes to the party as he's late. He reaches the venue and apologizes to Haruka, and she takes him to a hotel where she asks him to wash off his sweat after all the running. The goofer gasps, and they reach the hotel pool, where Haruka shows off her brand new pair of undies, and they begin to have fun in the pool. After the pool, they get a steam bath, enlarging her assets, and the thought of mixing sweat makes Junichi all red. They are an hour late, and to stop Junichi from panicking, she tells him that the venue is the hotel. However, neither her parents nor grandparents will come, so they'll be alone in her reserved room. Haruka takes a bath first while Junichi waits, and the snow falls, engulfing the whole city in white Christmas as everyone at the school is surprised. Suddenly, the lights are turned off at the hotel, and Haruka comes outside in a bathrobe and lets her feelings out for Junichi, making her cry as she wanted him to peek while she was bathing, but he didn't. Junichi comforts her and goes in for a smooch, strengthening their relationship. And 10 years later, their teacher visits them, and they become a lovey-dovey and successful couple. This marks the successful conclusion of Haruka's route. Junichi returns from the spot where he was supposed to meet his date, but he returns home and meets Kaoru on the way, and she asks for a ride on the bicycle. The next day, Junichi sleeps in class, and Kaoru wakes him up by biting his ear and later bites his other ear as well. She yaps and jokingly bids farewell. Yumehara arrives, and they all goof around for a moment until Kaoru asks Yumehara about the date spot. He says he has lost the will to date anyone, so the trio decides to go together. Junichi disagrees and says they will feel left out as there will be couples and start a quarrel. However, Tsukasa stops them as the class is about to begin, but Kaoru pushes Junichi down, and as she stands above him, she reveals her pantsuit. When he tells it to her, she punches him, and he's admitted to the nurse's room while Kaoru stays with him until he regains consciousness and they talk about their past. Before she leaves, she tells him to meet her at the back of her school, and his mind bloats with steamy thoughts and screams until Hibiki comes and tells him to stay quiet. After the class, he goes to the school's back and bumps into Rihoko, but she goes away after telling him the reason. He meets Kaoru and sees Keiko with her, which shatters his dreams. Kaoru called him because Keiko needed an opinion on a guy. She confessed but told her to wait. Junichi tells her to write a letter, and she agrees. Kaoru and Junichi walk while discussing Keiko, but Kaoru remembers she has a job at a family restaurant and works there because time is money. She continues to tell him about the job until he breaks the ice, saying he thought she would confess to him. She becomes pale, replies that it would never happen, and runs toward the job. As she serves the customers, Junichi also arrives, and as she asks for his order, he begins to look at her sacks of meat, and she calls him a pervert. She tries to serve the other customers, but overflows the coffee and runs to the bathroom to recollect herself, which leads her to realize she's in love with Junichi. He waits for the coffee until another waiter serves him, and he drinks it in silence. Kaoru bats and wonders if she has a crush on Junichi, but she tries to brush it off by saying they're only friends. The next day, Junichi enters the classroom and sees Kaoru fighting with the person whom Keiko confessed as he passed on her letter to make everyone laugh at her. Junichi controls the situation as Kaoru runs to the rooftop and follows her. She tells him the whole situation, and they look at the sky, explaining how clear it is in winter. Kaoru asks Junichi what he would call their vague relationship. Junichi does not know the answer, so she tells him it's time to change their relationship, but he still refuses to answer. Kaoru asks for time from him and says she will answer. In the corridor, Hibiki and Haruka converse about their plans, and suddenly, on the rooftop, Kaoru decides to grab Junichi up close. As he tries to resist, they accidentally get into it, blame it on Junichi, and run away. After school, Junichi tells Kaoru to meet him in the library for revenge, and as she arrives at the library, they go behind the shelves while Mia, Junichi's sister, sees them. To take revenge, Junichi wants to kiss her, but on her belly button, she allows him to kiss her but then runs her tongue, which causes her to panic, and she hides him under her shirt as his sister watches them. After their goofy endeavor, they laugh it off, and as they walk home, they help two kids with their badminton, which leads Junichi to pick up her with her sacks. After they help them, Kaoru leaves for home while the kids ask Junichi if he has smooched her, and he blushes. As Kaoru is on her way, she sees her mother in some distance, but as she tries to get her attention, she sees an unknown man with her. They hold hands, and she stands still as she watches them fade away in the middle of the city. The next day, Junichi notices and wonders why Kaoru didn't come to school, and while the teacher speaks, he screams and scares everyone. After the class is over, he asks about Kaoru from her friend, but she says she tried to reach her yesterday but could not talk with her, which usually happens when she overworks herself. Her friend asks if He cares about her but reluctantly denies her claim and falls from the seat. Kaoru wakes up in a bookstore and collects herself, while Junichi reminisces about her in school. He goes to the library and meets Rihoko. He then asks her about Kaoru, but she doesn't know her well. However, Rihoko's friend tells him that Kaoru never went home last night. Junichi runs and tries to find her at the places he visited with her in the past, but she's nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Kaoru watches the sea and cries as she wants to be alone with her mother. Junichi arrives at the shore, and the kids tell him about Kaoru crying, but she has already moved as he reaches. As he walks hopelessly, he hears Hibiki and Haruka talking about their maid Junior, who is at a restaurant, and instantly remembers Kaoru. After he reaches her restaurant, he finally sees her working there and calls her out. She comes out the door and says he will meet him in 15 minutes. When she comes outside, Junichi slams her with many questions, and she answers all of them until she reaches the breaking point and tells him the real reason for her absence. From everywhere, she feels jealous of that man with her mother because she never saw her mother smiling like that. Since they're childhood friends, he comforts her, but she whacks him up. Either way, he pierces her heart and makes her happy, and she calls her mom. After she clears out the misunderstandings, Junichi gives her favorite chocolate and leaves. After he returns home, he remembers everything he did with Kaoru and becomes all red, which leads him to realize his feelings for her. The next day, Junichi meets with Kaoru to make up for her absence. She's carrying heavy notes, and he helps her to carry them, and as she thanks her, he finally falls for her. Imahara tells Junichi the tips on how to confess to someone at Christmas, but he has not even crossed the hand-holding line himself, asking him about the time when he searched for Kaoru everywhere. After a few moments, Yumahara fakes getting a paper and tells Junichi to get him a bandage. But as soon as he leaves the room, he is okay, and it seems everyone has planned something for Junichi and Kaoru. As soon as he enters the infirmary, he sees Kaoru dressed as a maid and asks for a bandage. His curiosity arises, and he asks about the reason for her dress, to which she reveals that her school skirt was loosened, so her friend is trying to fix it. He gathers the courage and asks for a date. However, she has planned a date beforehand, so he wouldn't need to ask before Christmas Eve. When he returns home, his sister tells him everything becomes expensive on Christmas Eve, and he sighs. The night has arrived, and Kaoru tries to find the right dress, including her pantsuit. The preparations for the festival in the school are underway while Junichi waits for Kaoru. He almost gives up because of the wait, but she arrives. They collect themselves, and she takes him to the port tower she always wanted to climb with him. They walk, reminisce all their childhood memories, and climb up the tower using the elevator, which brings out Junichi's fear of heights. When they reach the top, she teases him with his fear and later consoles him by holding his hands as the snow falls. They watch the scenery and finally confess to each other. It gets super cold, but Kaoru misses the last bus home, so Junichi invites her home because his parents are absent. He takes her home, but they must sneak as Mia is still there. When they enter his room, they hear Mia approaching it, and he makes Kaoru hide in the closet. After she's gone, Kaoru says she wants to sleep with him in the bed, but platonically. He hesitates a little but agrees later on. The cherry boy cannot sleep with a woman on his bed, but she jumps on top of him as he tries to check on her. But as she tries to kiss him, she falls asleep. The sun rises, and both of them have taken their relationship a step forward as they happily ride on Junichi's rusty old pal to the horizon as a happy couple, thus marking the end of Kaoru's route. Junichi heads to school after he was betrayed on a date 2 years ago and is now scarred for life. He sees a beautiful girl with big assets and admires her beauty. Yumehara is full of energy after the summer vacation but forgets to do his assigned work. And as he is distressed, Junichi goes to the cafeteria to buy him something. However, he bumps into Haruka, and his girly purse falls. After greeting her, he goes to the cafeteria with Rihoko. The girl he sees in the morning tries to return the purse, but he runs away as Yumehara waits. After he buys the bread, the girl finally finds him and returns the purse. But as he asks about her, she becomes shy and runs away. He brings the bread to Yumehara and leaves the room to find her. He asks for some clues from Mia by explaining her appearance, and suddenly, she arrives behind her. Mia introduces Sae Nakata, the girl, to Junichi, the pervert. After their introduction, he finally thanks her. A few days later, Junichi sees Sae scared of a dog and unable to cross the road, so he accompanies her, but as the miniature-build dog shows up, she runs away. He then finds her and takes her to Kaoru's restaurant to make her feel better. He learns she would like a part-time job, so he asks Kaoru to help her, but she has to take another shift, which makes it hard for her. However, she explains how the hiring process works. For practice, Junichi takes her home and helps her with Mia. He makes her call him instructor and first helps with her confidence, but this turns into a disaster as the fella fails to do it himself. After he fails, they move to serve, but she falls and drops the coffee on his sword, and as he tries to take off his pants, Mia enters the room and scratches his face. Mia and Junichi take her on a walk to drop Sae home, and she calls her lucky to have a brother like her. They play a game, and Junichi loses, so now he has to carry Sae on her back and drop her home. Her asset touches his back, and he wants to lose forever, so he runs to drop her home. After 3 weeks, Sae can converse on a passing level, only if she talks with a vending machine. Kaoru asks Junichi if she's ready for the interview, but he says he will figure something out. He praises her progress and asks her to talk with one of the cafeteria ladies to boost her confidence. But when she tries to talk with the lady, she fails and returns to him. He makes him think that the lady is just a vending machine. And after giving it a thought, she goes again and becomes successful after a random conversation. He then takes her to a lab and tells her a scenario where she's late and has to change clothes hastily. She changes her clothes within the time limit, and later he orders her to change into her disastrous swimsuit. However, she slips and lands on top of Junichi as he accidentally squishes the asset while Mia sees them and scratches both his cheeks. Mia walks home with Sae and another friend and cheers them for their hard work. Back at the lab, Junichi finds where to take Sae for her next training, and the next day he meets her at a hot spring, along with Mia. The girls change into their swimsuits, and Junichi praises C's swimsuit. They sit near a pool where special grade fish tickle their feet, and Junichi begins his mock interview as a part of his training. But as he sees her gasping due to the tickling, the cherry man falls unconscious due to the devious thoughts in his mind. Later, Sae wakes him up. They all return home to continue their training, but they begin to play a board game instead. After Junichi loses, Sae asks her father to stay overnight, and before they sleep, Sae and Mia bathe together, and they massage each other's meat buns. Sae enters Junichi's room as she wears Mia's pajamas, but as Junichi says she looks just like his sister, she bursts out and says she doesn't want to be his sister. Winter is here. Mia gets ready for school, but when she calls Junichi, he doesn't respond, and he's not there when she checks his room. Junichi is already on the school's rooftop with Sae to help her with the training as strong winds bless Junichi's eyes. At lunchtime, Junichi asks Yumehara what happens if a girl doesn't want to be someone's younger sister, and to his so-called help, Haruka tells him that she would want to be the elder sister. Christmas is approaching, and Sae and her friends talk about the possibilities of the festival, including a best couple contest. Junichi wonders the whole day what Sae meant with that phrase, and after school, she reveals that she will go tomorrow for an interview, and Junichi will accompany her. She thanks him for the training and wants her to be the first to know her results. The next day, Junichi waits in the restaurant, and Sae approaches him to tell him she has passed. As she has graduated from his test, she still wants him to guide her in this niche as she's still nervous about the job. Later, she asks if she can also visit his home to thank Mia. After getting used to her job, Junichi and her friends visit the restaurant she works at, and she tells Junichi that the job suits her. She brings their order, accidentally spills the drink, and cleans it up, making Junichi's heart throb. A few days pass. Junichi takes her to an amusement park for an unofficial date. And after it ends, Sae takes Junichi to a hero show. The show ends with Sae becoming a part of it. And when they begin to eat together, she breaks the ice by asking him to go on the best couple contest with him. He agrees, and she tells him to call her by her first name. As they walk home, she tries to hold his hand but fails. The night falls, and as they wait for the bus, Sae finally gathers her courage and asks Junichi to hold her hand, which makes her happy. Sae is glad that her first date was with Junichi. And when he returns home, his wheel spins and he falls for her. She takes him to a restaurant for a treat, but she actually hears a myth that a dish from the restaurant keeps the couple together, and she wants to eat it with Junichi. They order the gigantic parfait, supposedly longer than Junichi's sword, and they begin to eat it like there's no tomorrow. She tells him that she wants to win the couple's contest no matter what. The time passed in the blink of an eye, and the festival had arrived. Everyone is ready for the festival, including Hibiki, Haruka, and Yumehara with a pinky dolphin. Mia encourages Sae and Junichi, and the festival begins with ranking the couples. They're the final couple to appear in the contest, and everyone applauds their dress and short speech. However, Hibiki and Haruka win as the best couple, while Sae and Junichi are the follow-ups and win tickets to a private room with movies. After the festival ends, Sae and Junichi walk home, but as they lose, Sae apologizes to him because she thinks she's no match for the school's queen. Junichi holds her and confirms the movie date, which is Christmas night. The next day, they go on a date together to the cinema, where the award tickets are applicable. They reach their designated room, and after inspecting it, Junichi goes to the bathroom, where he meets a foreigner who tells him not to be afraid of the failure of love. He returns to the room and sees Sae without her coat, which makes him all red. They learn about the movie's actors and directors and remember the foreigner he saw in the bathroom was the director. As the credits of the movie roll, they converse and fall on the sofa. Junichi gathers his courage and confesses his true feelings to Sae, which marks the beginning of their friendship, and the newly uncherry boy falls unconscious. After their confession, they watch the giant Christmas tree as the snow falls, which marks C's route's end. And Junichi will become a film director in the future. After waiting for no response from his date, Junichi returns home and suddenly bumps his cycle into a girl, but she's fortunately safe and returns home. 2 years later, Yumehara asks Junichi to go to an arcade with him, but he's broke. They see Tsukasa doing the committee work for the upcoming festival. She leaves, and the boys leave the school in the chilling winter winds, which causes poor Junichi's kidney to act mischievous, and he tries to find a bathroom. However, they see a girl swinging in the park, and when she jumps, they see her black pantsuit. However, she notices them, and Junichi becomes all goody and introduces himself, including Yumehara, to her. She jokingly says she will report them, but she runs away before Junichi can ask his name. The next day, Junichi walks to school with Mia while Kaoru arrives from behind and gropes his butt as a joke. He gets angry, but she runs away. Suddenly, Junichi lands his eye on the girl he saw in the park yesterday, Nanasaki. At lunchtime, Junichi thinks about the dish he wants, but the line behind him increases, and Nanasaki breaks the line as he takes a lot of time and teases him. A few moments later, he sees a cat and follows it until he reaches the pool where Nanasaki practices swimming. She comes from the back door and accidentally sees below her skirt, making him more sus in her eyes. The cat is her pet, and now she wants Junichi to take a peek under her. However, she's wearing a swimsuit, and she explains why. After they converse, they properly introduce themselves to each other. He notices that she's in Mia's class. As she hears this, she becomes the Flash and runs away. At home, Mia tells him that Nanasaka was asking about him, and she asks if he did something to her. In the morning, Junichi meets with Nanasaki at the water pump, and she tells him that there's something written on his head, which is why Haruka laughs at him. Out of the blue, she asks if he's free today as she wants to shop to buy some stuff on sale. She thanked him for his help and gave him a prize coupon, which helped him win a small prize. As his luck gets him the voucher, he asks Nanasaki to buy something with her. They buy some snacks and watch the sunset at the seashore. After they gathered the plastic bags, they walked on the beach, and she thanked him for the tasty snacks as Junichi tried to run behind a bag that flew away due to the strong wind. She smirked. Yumehara hears about a new girl joining a school who is on par with the queen's cuteness. So he, Junichi, and Kaoru go to the library to see her themselves. However, as they try to find her, Nanasaki tells Junichi to stay quiet as they disturb the library. Nanasaki helps the trio see the girl, and she asks if they are satisfied now. They are, and now Nanasaki begins to copy maths notes for her makeup exam because if she drops the ball again, she won't be able to partake in the swimming activity. Junichi tells her that copying down the notes won't help, so he offers to help her study. She skips her swimming class for the whole month to study with Junichi, and for now, he asks her to take a breather. She explains how Junichi acts like a kid, which reminds him of his younger brother, who seeks attention from her but doesn't really talk with her. She tells him this because he's childish, so he might know how to reach him. She suddenly snaps back and apologizes, and after their study session, they walk home as Junichi wonders about her little brother. He asks Mia for an opinion on this situation, but she doesn't even know about her brother's existence. The next day, Junichi's teacher scolds him for being late, but instead he starts to stare at her meat bags and suddenly returns to reality. As he's about to leave, she smacks his bum, which activates his neurons, and he understands her. He runs to find Nanasaki and tells her he has finally found the solution to the problem she told him about yesterday. But the conversation gets steamy as he sees Asabe, making Nanasaki leave the table. She returns to the swimming pool, and as Junichi trespasses, everyone present at the pool lectures him. Hibiki understands she's here to see Nanasaki, and she lets her talk with him. Nanasaki tells him to wait till the practice ends, and they reunite at the shore. Junichi tells her it's fine to spoil her little brother since Junichi also used to misbehave for attention. Later, she thanks him for his help in maths and gives him a present, an action belt. He goofs around with her to use it, and many kids join as both represent their favorite hero. After that, Nanasaki and Junichi give them the action belt, and they run away after thanking them. She returns home, bathes, and fixes her brother's bed. As she tries to sleep, her emotions for Junichi reveal themselves, and she cannot wait to see him the next day. And as Junichi returns home from school, he meets a man who promotes the opening of an amusement park. The next day, he decides to date Nanasaki and her brother at the park, but he falls ill and cannot come to the park with her. It's only them now, and Mr. Peeper gets flustered by her dress, revealing her meat buns. Their date starts from playing arcades to riding in floral cups and eating ice cream together. Mia feels irritated as his brother leaves her home alone, and she joins Rihoko to gather the sweets that will be used in the school festival for Christmas. The lovebirds see a horror house and decide to dive in, but as soon as they enter, Nanasaki is already scared of the fake puppets in the chamber. However, Junichi begins to hallucinate some of his favorite people in the chamber as children, making him think he is tired. They continue to walk in the chamber until they see a giant puppet, making Junichi hallucinate Nanasaki as a cup of ramen, which he tries to gulp up after having perverted thoughts. However, he suddenly snaps to reality and sees himself sucking Nanasaki's finger. After their scary endeavor, she's angry at him for his goofy behavior, but this also helps her relieve her swimming stress. Later, they go to the park, where Junichi first meets Nanasaki with Yumehara, and they take a swing together. However, Nanasaki shares the swing with him and gets on top, and as soon as he realizes it, she kisses him and runs away in a flash. The next day, Junichi walks to the school and wonders about the kiss while Yumehara thinks he's feeling down and tries to cheer him up with the Goody magazine. In the school, he sees and runs toward Nanasaki to ask about yesterday, but she ignores the question and asks him to go to the store with her. He waits outside the pool, but she's late. He goes to the pool, sees her arguing with Hibiki, and tries to run away from her. But as she sees Junichi, she jumps in the pool and swims non-stop until he dives in to grab her, and she begins to cry like a baby. After the confrontation, they walk home, and she tells him that it happened because Hibiki selected a junior backstroker instead of her, since she was busy with her brother and makeup exams. She suddenly remembered the store plan, but it was too late already. As they head their way, she calls him out but suddenly changes the topic and asks him if he's free on Christmas so he can help their club out at the festival. He agrees to the plan, and she now counts on him to help them at the festival. The festival has arrived, and many students' families begin to enter the school to attend it. Junichi and Nanasaki work at a food stand to provide the customers. Hibiki tells them what to do, and Tsukasa marks the festival's opening with a banger. As soon as it begins, their food stand has already become a famous spot, which grabs the attention of a wandering club, which mocks Nanasaki for asking for a guy's help and wants to test the taste. Nanasaki serves them their desired order, and after a few minutes, they fall in love with the taste. They become fans and ask their names. And moments later, Junichi's teacher, Takahashi, also arrives to taste their food after getting drunk. The Wanderer Club tells them that she has escaped from the infirmary, and she tries to cause a ruckus, but Tsukasa saves the day by sending her back. To show their gratitude, Junichi and Nanasaki give her a bowl of Odin and bid farewell. The festival continues at full capacity with the help of the students, and Hibiki, along with Haruka, praises the efforts of Nanasaki. Their food stall is a sellout, and as a reward, Hibiki tells them to have free time together. They eat the remaining food under a tree, and Junichi asks Nanasaki why she asked if he was free for Christmas. She smirked and took him to the bus stop they made in the nick of time. He asks her where she is taking him, but she calls it a secret and takes him up a hill. On the hill is a hot spring belonging to Nanasaki's grandfather, where she regularly trains her muscles. She asks Junichi to get in the hot spring, and she later follows him in the spring in a towel. They try to converse normally, but it's all in vain, and finally, Nanasaki shows her true feelings to Junichi and confesses. In return, he feels helpless and confesses that he is already in love with her. She jumps on top of him, and their towel falls, revealing Nanasaki's angelic curve as she breaks a war with the lips. At the shore, Junichi sleeps on her lap, and when he wakes up, he stays with her all the time, as he loves her down to earth, marking the end of Nanasaki's route. Episode 17. 2 years ago, when Junichi was buying a present for his date on Christmas, he asked Rihoko to help him with the present. Rihoko felt disappointed, and her love for Junichi had always been one-sided. Returning to the present, the morning breaks and Rihoko is late for school, which causes her friend, Kani, to rush into her room and wake her up. They walk to the school, and Rihoko suddenly remembers a thing she forgot at home, so she hastily returns to her home. After she's done, she's already late and tries to cut a shortcut from the back of the school by crawling through a broken fence. However, her enormous food storage doesn't allow it, and she gets stuck. She tries not to make a noise, but Junichi arrives from behind and pulls her out of her misery. He mocks her food-devouring syndrome and goes to the school. In the PE class, Kani passes the long jump, but Rihoko slips and falls on the mattress as she jumps. After the class, they talk, and Kani notices that she's eating a lot of meat buns. So, she recommends that Rihoko do an air diet, pretending to eat food by taking a lot of air. However, she says she'll do it tomorrow and continues eating the food. Suddenly, Haruka throws an air disc, hitting Rihoko, which shocks her childish brain and makes her decide to start today's diet. In the class, Junichi returns the goodie magazine to Yumehara and praises it. The door opens, and Rihoko calls them to give Junichi the cupcakes she supposedly made and says she will try her best for the diet. Suddenly, Kani asks the boys out for skating on Sunday, and Rihoko wonders why. Rihoko tries to control her diet with coffee, but when her friends bring her the supreme cream buns, she gives up and eats them. She accidentally spills about her diet, and her friends stare at her, which makes her shy enough to run away from the room. Yumehara and Junichi leave the school without Kaoru and sit backstage to discuss a certain magazine. They hear someone folding a wrapper and see Rihoko downstairs. She and Junichi walk home, where he says he'll be rooting for her diet. When she reaches home, she checks her weight and not so surprisingly gains more. So she tries to do stretches, but gives up much earlier. The next day, Junichi reaches the fence and opens it up more, making Rihoko think she has lost some weight as she passes through it easily now. She promises to keep up with her diet. Sunday has arrived, so Junichi, Yumehara, Kani, and Rihoko are together at the ice skating park. Everyone can skate except Rihoko. Kani tries to help her, but she fails and calls Junichi to help her instead. However, she becomes overconfident and falls. To stop her, Junichi tries to grab her but instead gets his hand on fat sacks, which scares her, and she falls. It reveals her odd panties while Yumehara and Kani watch them and smirk. After skating, she assures Rihoko that the attraction between her and Junichi is worth some points, and to make them closer, she'll cook up something. The group takes a photo and returns home. The next day, Rihoko signs rental equipment from Tsukasa for the upcoming festival. Whereas Junichi eats a bun and remembers the erotic touch he had with Rihoko at the park, Rihoko's friend asks the daydreamer for help to carry the table, and when he helps them, they serve him some tea as a reward. They say Rihoko keeps talking about him, but when he asks them about it, she enters the room and is surprised to see him there. Her friends ask Junichi to help them with the tea stall at the festival, and he agrees, then returns home. Rihoko and her friends discuss the future of their club and decide to add Junichi as their member, no matter the cost. The festival has arrived, and Junichi helps out the tea club members for the stall. Rihoko arrives in a kimono, and Junichi falls flat on her, which makes him compliment her dress. They walk together to the entrance, and Rihoko asks him if he wants to join the tea council, but he disagrees for now. Tsukasa commences the festival, and they both run to the festival together. After it ends, they sit together in a park and reminisce about their childhood memories as soon as the snow falls. Rihoko remembers her present for Junichi, her handmade gloves for him. He thanks her but apologizes as he doesn't have anything in return, but she doesn't mind. When she returns home, she stretches and calls Kani to ask what she should ask in return for the present, but Kani tells her something she can't do. The festival was a success, and everyone at the school is working hard to put everything back in their place. Nanasaki's Odin stall, including Rihoko's and her friend's tea stall, was successful. Rihoko's friend asks her to come outside the council room and takes her to the park, where Junichi and her other friends sit for tea to show him gratitude for his help. as it is cold outside. They take him inside the room and sit on a kotatsu to continue their celebration. To help the club grow, he asks them to make open-air tea ceremonies for the next festival. With the addition of music, it will become a certified banger. They try to teach him the tea-making process, but he cannot do it, so Rihoko tries to teach him. However, she is no better than him, and the group laughs at her. The meat bag slips and falls on Junichi, and their friends help them to get her up. Nanasaki, Mia, and Sae celebrate Christmas at Junichi's home while he and Rihoko stop at Kaoru's restaurant to eat snacks. However, Rihoko doesn't order anything as she's learning self-control and begins to talk about the present she wants from him in return. She asks him for a date at the shrine, and he agrees to accompany her. This makes her happy, and she releases herself from the diet chain and eats his cake slice. Yumehara calls Junichi and asks for a bang video night, but Junichi tells him about the plan with Rihoko, and he calls him a traitor. He is convinced that he should find happiness with Rihoko, as she's famous in their school. Rihoko tries to do push-ups to exercise, but fails instantly and waits for the date night. The night arrives, and Junichi bathes as Rihoko rings the bell. He runs to check the door but sees Mia there, and suddenly, his towel falls and reveals his snake. The three sit in the kotatsu, and Rihoko gives them cheese cream cakes, which makes Junichi think about her diet. Later, she and Mia learn about the idols' performances, and they act like them in front of Junichi. Before they know it, Mia falls asleep, and Junichi leaves the room to prepare for the date. However, when he returns, he sees Rihoko fast asleep, and when he waits for her, he falls asleep too. Rihoko gets up and wakes both of them up, and they move toward the shrine along with Mia. When they reach the top, Junichi gives Rihoko a wish board so she can write her wish and hang it on the shrine. They attend more activities, and the focus shifts to the wish board, where she wishes for her feelings to reach Junichi someday. Episode 20. The new year has begun, and Rihoko has to search for new members for the tea club. At lunchtime, Rihoko tells Kani about her complicated relationship with Junichi, and how it has always been the same since their childhood. As Kani asks how much weight she has gained, Rihoko sees Junichi and asks how the food is, then they go together to get a drink. As Junichi buys the drink, he asks her about her diet, and he thinks it's going fine as she probably wrote the wish on the board. They go to the club room to meet the members, but they're outside having a duel with Haruka, the puppy master. If they won, Haruka would join the club, but unfortunately, it didn't end up in their favor. As the members are about to graduate, they want Junichi to become the club president and handle everything with the help of the meat roll Rihoko. Rihoko and Junichi walk home, and she tells him about how she took the members' presents for granted, and it doesn't feel real that they're graduating. She wants to show them the maximum gratitude. Suddenly, her stomach growls and Junichi gives her a treat of her favorite cake. The next day, Mia makes cream cakes with the help of Nanasaki and Sae. Junichi enters the room, and Mia makes fun of him by saying he will not get any sweets from anyone other than her and her mother. He walks back up to his room hopelessly while Sae and Nanasaki tell Mia to give their cream cakes to him. In the club's room, Junichi converses with the members and asks about Rihoko's well-being, as she will feel lonely after they graduate. They convince Junichi that Rihoko is famous among boys, adding that he and her will make a great match. Back at the school, Rihoko talks to Kani about gifting some cream buns to Junichi. She agrees, and Rihoko visits Junichi's classroom to give him the present. Yumehara ironically cries. Rihoko and Junichi sit outside as they eat the chocolate cream buns, and he cleans some cream from her face. After laughing off, she returns home and checks her weight just to see it rise again. Fast forward to the day her club members finally graduate. She cries and is happy for them. Junichi suddenly enters the room and asks the seniors not to worry about the club's future as he has finally joined, and he will keep it alive with Rihoko's help. A few years later, Rihoko and Junichi became a lovely couple and now care for the club together. The graduated seniors visit the club entrance ceremony again to have a good time and let them know about the incoming juniors. Rihoko explains how Junichi has helped her with the club and promised to stay by her side forever. Thus, the series marks the end of Rihoko's route. At the festival, Junichi stared at the Christmas tree a year ago and remembered how his heart was broken on the same day over a year ago. Yumehara calls him out for the dance ceremony, but his past ghost won't leave him. He cannot bring joy to himself. Tsukasa, the class prez, also watches the Christmas tree and decides to give it a shot next year. In the present, Junichi walks to school and Rihoko accompanies and asks him if he will attend the upcoming yearly festival. He replies that he's not interested and instead spends the vacations at his home, then rushes to his class. For the festival, the teacher asks for candidates who would like to act as a committee member, but no one stands up except Tsukasa. Junichi sees her and stands up to help her in the festival. After class, Yumehara and Kaoru ask him if he has a fever since he is not a committee member type, but he says that he just wants to give Christmas another chance so he doesn't run away from the past. Tsukasa arrives and says she didn't expect him to volunteer, so she wants to ask any questions he has. The next day, Tsukasa and Junichi together paperwork all the clubs that want to have stalls at the function. Later, she takes him to the equipment room and tells him not to close the door completely as the knob is broken and it doesn't open from the inside. He opens the window for fresh air, but the pressure closes the door and now they're stuck. Tsukasa tells Junichi there's no need to worry as she has let the other committee members know about their situation. They begin to mark the equipment, and as she stands on a ladder, Junichi sees her restricted area. While they continued the work, he asked her multiple questions to get to know her better, and they completed their work in a few moments. Nobody comes to open the door, and as they are about to lose their cool, Mia and Sei arrive, and they open it to save them. They walk home and meet Tsukasa's older sister, Yukari, who teases her for roaming around with a boy. Tsukasa angrily drags her older sister home, leaving Junichi in the dust. In school, every class causes a buzz in the committee room as their requirements are unmet, and they start blaming Junichi for it. He assures them everything will be fine and goes to the pool to ask Tsukasa for help. She agrees, and as he returns to the class, he meets Haruka, who tries to peep at the pool girls, but Hibiki gets her back. Junichi finalizes the paperwork in the class and sees a small notebook without a name. As he wonders about it, he begins to read it. Tsukasa enters the classroom and claims it is her notebook. And when he tells her that he looked inside it, she chokes him up with her tie because she doesn't want him to read it. As Tsukasa holds him, he tries to speak, but she chokes him harder as he is not allowed to speak without her permission. He tries to resist and apologize but accidentally gropes her chest, and she takes him to a shrine. She confronts him about the notebook because she thinks he might have read the thing she scribbled. He exclaims that this might be a misunderstanding as he only saw schedules and memos, which makes her flatter and says he should have said it clearly before. As she walks away, Junichi asks her if it is her real personality, and she vaguely answers the question. She makes him chant a spell about her innocence, but when he hesitates a little, she blackmails him as he touches her chest. He chants the desired phrase and asks for details about the scribble. She says that if anyone sees it, she'll ensure that person does not return to the school. The next day, he sees Tsukasa in her daily personality as she reads the lecture, and after the class, the monster arrives at his back as soon as he tries to tell her about Yumehara. Yumehara tells her that he will tell him something about her. And as he tries to sneak away, she stops him and says there's some work she needs to discuss. She takes him to the committee room and asks why he was going to break the promise. He replies that he wanted to see if Yumehara would believe him. She sighs deeply and says she will drain him out until he's dry. Junichi becomes her pet for the next few days and follows all the work orders she gives him, making him spend sleepless nights. When they're outside painting the statue, his loyalty makes her question why he is doing all this, even after he knows her secret. He simply replies that it's fun, and she tells him to go home and sleep, or her reputation as a class pres will be degraded. The next day, Kaoru tells him that Tsukasa has passed out due to overwork, and he visits her home. After she wakes up, he asks her how she is doing, and she replies that she's fine and will return to school tomorrow. He praises her sister's personality, but she suddenly goes to sleep, and as Junichi is about to leave her room, she thanks him for visiting her. When he sees her sister again, he realizes that Tsukasa doesn't like her very much. She returns to school the next day. Hibiki and Haruka arrive in the classroom, and Haruka says Hibiki wants to create a final school memory, so she wants to wear a sexy Santa costume at the festival. She agrees and says to try to keep it reasonable. Junichi carries multiple boxes and wonders why Tsukasa needs them, but suddenly, he hears Tsukasa cry and leaves the boxes to check on her. She tells him that a dog peed on her, so he carries her on his back to the water pump, and as she is about to fall, he holds her Grand Canyon. She flatters and smirks. When she returns home, she bathes and thinks that Junichi's personality is a mystery, and she realizes that he's the first person she has ever thought about so deeply, which makes her wonder if she may be in love with him. At school, the room teacher calls Tsukasa and tells her that as Tsukasa fell due to overwork, the staff discussed the situation, which led them to reduce the number of activities. She says it's fine and she won't overwork herself again and walks away from the room while she quenches her tea. She talks about this with Junichi, and he apologizes for not being there. Some students enter the class and ask for some lights, and Junichi asks her for the key. At lunchtime, Tsukasa has made lunch for Junichi and asks him if he has some suggestions, but he's too busy staring at the lunch. He tells her they should have more people help them, but her pride won't accept it. However, they have no other way to meet the deadline, so she has to do it either way. Everyone is working hard for the festival until a group of girls decide to go rogue and spread rumors about Junichi and Tsukasa that they're flirting as everyone is working themselves to death. As Junichi enters the class, everyone stares at him, and as Tsukasa follows him, the girl starts to attack her verbally. However, Tsukasa begins to laugh like a shounen anime protagonist and roasts her by going all out of her limited dictionary, calling their life shameful. Tsukasa burns the notebook at the shrine, shocking Junichi, and she suddenly confesses her emotions to him. She says she feels happy when she's with him, and he kisses her as a form of agreement. The next day, Junichi runs to the ground and sees Tsukasa's team losing in the volleyball match. As her team members leave, he decides to join her and the other girls. But as he joins, the opponents leave. The festival has almost arrived, and both have finalized their work. However, as they walk home, she remembers something and returns to school, and when Junichi follows her, he sees her working alone. She hugs him in the class and says she should ask everyone again. Her ego takes over again, but as he tries to suppress it, she slaps him and runs away. When he enters his class in the morning, he sees everyone being all goody with Tsukasa, and Kaoru tells Junichi that she apologized to everyone. Now they have decided to help her again. Junichi meets Tsukasa outside and asks why she asked for help after slapping him for suggesting this. However, she replies that the stubborn Tsukasa doesn't exist anymore, which makes him wonder what happened to her. The festival is almost here, and now all that is left is to decorate the Christmas tree. As everyone appreciates the efforts, Junichi sits alone and wonders about Tsukasa, as her old side no longer exists. She tries to get him up, but he says he has some final verification to do in the committee room and leaves. Tsukasa opens the festival by showing gratitude to the students who helped them and welcomes every guest on the ground. She returns to Junichi and talks about the beauty of the Christmas tree. Everyone eats their desired food at the festival, and Mia's class is also working on the play. Haruka wins the Santa contest with the sexy revealing Santa outfit once again. Tsukasa leaves her friends for committee work, and Junichi visits Rihoko's tea sake stall. Tsukasa gets dressed up as a Santa in the classroom, while Junichi feels lost as he reminisces about the old side of her. As he walks, he sees Yumehara burning a letter, which he reveals is a letter from a girl he gets in his middle school, but he doesn't care to reply. Junichi tells him he lost all his motivation for Christmas, but Yumehara cheers him up. Tsukasa gives everyone presents at the festival, as she's dressed as Santa, but when she tries to give it to a child, he runs away. The festival comes to an end, and everyone leaves. Everyone celebrates an after party as the festival was a massive success. Tsukasa thanks everyone as it wouldn't be possible without them. And when Junichi enters the room, he asks her for a minute and takes her to the other room. He embraces her and tells her that he is worried that her other side has disappeared. But she suddenly turns back and starts to beat him down, and ultimately cries as she removes herself because of what he said. She cries on top of him, and he hugs her to comfort her. Their teacher sees them through the room, thinks they're doing the deed, and moves away as she gives them this moment as a Christmas present. Junichi and Tsukasa sit outside, and she uses water to clean the bruises she gave her. After they reconcile, she tells him about her past when she realized Santa was not real, how she was sleepless for multiple nights, and how this made her attached to the school festival's Christmas tree. Junichi holds her as she flatters, and they smooch to make a promise to keep each other happy forever. Years later, Junichi, Tsukasa, and their daughter watch the Christmas tree, and they tell her about the promise they made thanks to it and live happily ever after. That's all for today. We hope you enjoyed our video. Give us a like and subscribe to our channel for more fantastic and steamy content.